your small business is booming and ready to expand, you might say something like,
"It's happening!
Booyah!
Yeah!
Crushed it.
But if you need someone who can actually help protect your growing business, just say,
like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
And just like that, your State Farm agent can help you get the coverage you need for your new space. For your small business insurance needs, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Attack the Baseline, the WNBA podcast where every episode we attack our baseline knowledge of the WNBA. We're your hosts, John and Kristen Barber, and today we're back to talk about, not the W, but the NCAA women's basketball. The season is underway. We've had some interesting games thus far. We've got exciting players. We've got title contenders, and really a lot to get into as we look forward to this upcoming season. I'm excited to get into all of it with our guest, Dat. But before we do, Kristen, how are you?
I'm good. I'm loving this fall season so far. I love being cozy. I love just throwing on these college games in the background of whatever we're doing. There's so many teams to be watching and so many different players. So it's great to have just on the background. Like, you don't have to be paying such close attention to every single game. It's for the vibes. So I'm loving that.
Yeah, I don't think you would be able to physically pay attention to every one of these meaningful games. It's just like, passively pay attention. A lot of these players are going to be very relevant for the W in the future, but I agree with you. It has been a blast, and this time of year is very fun, especially for basketball.
But surely our guest, Dat, pays more close attention than we do.
Yes,
to the
yes,
women's game.
I know he does. Dat, welcome back to the show. This is your third or fourth or maybe fifth time on the show. You're our NCAA women's basketball expert. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk about the season and what's in store.
Yeah, perfect timing as the W is perfectly silent in their middle of their CBA negotiations and unrivaled. We got all of our clubs, and now they'll be basically quiet for the next month and a half as we get ready for that in Miami. But now we can kind of shift the focus to the other important women's basketball that's being played, and that's the college game. So, Dat, why don't we start off? Give us a general lay of the land. How are you feeling going into this year's season? What were some things that you were looking forward to, just as a high-level thing? And has there been any surprises in the early weeks?
Well, personally, some of your listeners might know I'm a big Stanford fan. That was my alma mater. So for me, just from a fan standpoint, Stanford got the number 3 recruiting class coming in this year. So I'm excited for this season for them specifically, but overall for the college landscape. I mean, UConn, obviously the defending champs, even though they lost Paige Beckers, they still have a very strong squad, which we'll talk about. But I'm curious to see whether some of the other Final Four participants from last year, UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, if they're able to make that final jump and kind of dethrone UConn from the champion throne. So it's, still early. No really surprising results quite yet, but we have some big games coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, Kristen and I have picked at it. We've seen a couple of the matchups. We saw a bit of UCLA, UNC the other night. We just watched UConn basically blow out Ohio State. Kristen had checked out USC versus USC, the battle for the real SC, I heard. But so there's been at least opportunities to see some of these high level clubs, the ones that we've really heard about the last several years that we've been paying closer attention. And I kind of want to just start the first thing I want to just say is this too much of a jump? Do you think UConn is just gonna do it again? Like it kind of just feels to me when I watch them, I'm like, how the heck? Sarah Strong is just an incredible basketball player. And you've got AZ in her senior year getting ready for her future with the W. It's just like, I don't know how you stop these guys.
I mean, I mean, right now, I think UConn is the favorite. Not the overwhelming favorites like some, in some previous seasons where they are just like heads and shoulders above everyone else. I think the gap between them and South Carolina or UCLA is a bit smaller than in the 2010s when they had that trio of led by Stewie and where they won 4 straight. But looking at the UConn roster right now, I was just looking at it recently, and 2/3 of their roster were top 15 high school recruits, which is ridiculous. And they just got a big transfer this past season, Sarah Williams from Wisconsin. She averaged 19 points and 6 rebounds from Wisconsin, and that brings another inside presence to complement Sarah Strong. This game that you talked about that just finished against Ohio State, they have an international recruit, Blanca Quinones from Ecuador, who came off the bench, 18 points, 7 of 11 shooting. So, I mean, the talent level is really, unparalleled because Gino can get pretty much any recruit he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just interesting because I think in the past couple years, I have been so in the mindset of, oh, South Carolina is the top team. And, they've won so many times the past few years. But now it definitely seems like it shifted a little bit to where UConn is going to be the top for the next couple, I would think, the next couple years. Surely Dawn Staley is doing her best to recruit and retain her players and build them up as best as she can. But to me, it just seems like Sarah Strong is just such a good player that is just going to bring this team to the championships every year, I would think. Just in this past game against Ohio State today, she had 29 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 steals, and 3 blocks. She almost had a 5x5. She needed two more blocks. It's just she is so good.
She can do it all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she's only a sophomore, but it looks like she's already well on her way to join that, not just a great UConn player, but a legendary, to go along with Paige Beckers, Stewie, Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird. I mean, she still has a couple years left, but looks like she's going to join that pantheon of all-time UConn greats.
I don't know if this is a hot take, but she kind of reminds me of Fee. I do see that she has a full complement of all of these skills that I'm and I'm not the kind of guy that always is trying to think of player comps in my head, but just someone that can do it all on both ends of the floor. If she is Nafisa Collier, then why should I not expect UConn to be in the conversation for the entirety of the year, barring anything crazy that would happen.
And she's only a sophomore,
Right. That's what's crazy too.
Yeah, I don't know if this is being discussed in this CBA. It's probably not, because this WCBA really is probably just about getting the contracts to be higher. But I would be interested if they are looking into lowering the age of when women can come into the league. Because I think Sarah, if it was the same as the NBA, I think she would have been drafted this past year as a freshman. But she has to stay there 4 years.
Definitely.
So that is interesting.
Yeah. I I don't know. I don't know if they changed that rule yet, or maybe when they have more teams in the W, then they consider that. They got to cut the third round probably, if that is something that they're going to do. But we'll see what happens in the future. So we talked about Sarah Strong. Let's talk about another one of these like standout performances so far early in the season. Hannah Hidalgo had 44 points and 16 steals in a
Yes,
game.
and
16?
16.
Uh, I saw that the previous record held by was it Tisha Penichero was like 14 in a game, which is also crazy to me. But 16 is just unbelievable. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to check this one out, and I don't really care whatever level of opponent they were playing to get 16. Like, how did they not just find a way to keep the ball away from her? How did she get her hands on the ball 16 times to take it away? Um, what are your thoughts on the early Hidalgo roller coaster? Because yesterday it sounded like she didn't do particularly well. Um, but I mean, she's obviously stuffed the stat sheet already.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Notre Dame, obviously last year they were a big contender for the title, but I think this year they're like on the way, a step back because they obviously Sonia Cintrón went to the WNBA, graduated, and then Olivia Miles transferred. They also lost another top freshman prospect in Kate Koval, who went to LSU. So it's basically Hidalgo by herself, largely in Notre Dame.
Mm,
So, a lot of pressure is on her to kind of carry the load a lot more than she had to do last year. Obviously, she showed with that performance that you just mentioned how talented she is, but I think that won't be enough. They lost yesterday. I think going forward into the season, I don't think they're in a much lower tier than they were 1 year ago. I don't think they're a serious
mm,
title contender this year.
Hmm.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense. What that was against Michigan yesterday that they got handed a major loss. But yeah, when you list out the number of talented players that are no longer with them, it seems understandable to think that Hannah can't really do it all by herself. Of course, she's a talented player and she'll be drafted, I would expect, near the top of this class. But I think the sort of stratosphere of her being number one overall pick, which is something that I've heard some people consider. I don't know if I'll necessarily see that here, but it is a good opportunity for her to just sort of continue to show off what she can do by herself. And if a team in the W feels equipped, they can go make her the star of their franchise. But it's an uphill battle for Notre Dame for sure. Another player I want to already mention, Audi Crooks, 43 points in 19 minutes the other day. Very much a beast mode effort from her. She's been um, Future is Unrivaled member, so she's very much been around in the picture since their previous run last year. How do you feel about that Iowa State team? Do you, any opinion about them?
Yeah, I mean, I think she might get overlooked in the national picture just because Iowa State is not like a program that you traditionally think of as a top contender. Actually, she was going to be someone as a player that I was going to highlight as like a someone you should keep an eye out for. That's not a household name. As you said, incredible performance by her, and I think she has some talent with her at Iowa State. So it'll be fun and interesting. And she's a different kind of player, obviously, kind of a post up, like a big presence down in the paint. So I think she brings a little bit, a different game than most of the other players that you see, even in the professional level. So I think it's someone like, you should check out. Like, I think they'll be playing Iowa, the in state rivalry game a
Hmm.
little bit later on, I think next month. So she's definitely a player to keep your eye out on. So.
Yeah, that'll be one to watch. I guess last one before we talk about the sort of the bigger picture teams. UCLA, we had a chance to check them out. Lauren Betts and company. What have you seen out of that UCLA team, who have already had two pretty major matchups on their early schedule here?
Yeah, I mean, UCLA has a really tough schedule coming up as well. Obviously, they played like UNC already, but they also have potential. They have Texas coming up in about a week. And if they beat Texas, then they could play South Carolina right after that. And then they have a matchup against Tennessee at the end of the month. And so, yeah, in the next 2 weeks, they'll have pretty big games, pretty big games. But I think right now, I would say if the championship was held like next week, UCLA would be my pick because they have the most experience. Obviously, they have Lauren Betts, but they welcome in Charlize Ledger-Walker, a transfer from Washington State, and Gianna Nipkins, like a grad transfer from Utah, who has not shot less than 38% from three-point range. So their backcourt is extremely versatile and deep, and I think a perfect complement to Betts to be able to space the floor. And there's also a lot of pressure on UCLA because all the players I just mentioned are seniors or grad students. So basically this is like their final run for a title before they have to pretty much rebuild next year. So it's a lot of pressure for Corey Close.
Yeah, that is a lot. I didn't realize that. So that is a lot of pressure for sure.
But I mean, going out and getting those major transfers. I mean, you look at the very early mock draft, like first round mock drafts. UCLA is all over that list of first round talent. Like whether it's Lauren Betts, whether it's Kiki Rice, whether it's Neepkins, or whether it's Ledger Walker, who is a player that I didn't necessarily know of before I checked out that game versus UNC the other night. They are clearly reinforced this year to add extra shooting and extra scoring around Lauren because, you know, the result that they got in the tournament last year was not what they were hopeful for. They want to win it all, and they very clearly are going out of their way to win it all. I think it's interesting that you have them sort of penciled in as your champion if we were to have a final tomorrow. But I mean, I get it. I understand. I'm curious to see what the season arc will be for Lauren Betts, because I do believe that she has a pretty considerable amount of pressure just in general from like the idea of who she is as a player and her expectations for the draft and all of that comes into what will end up being the like UCLA's year this year. I think Lauren's going to have a lot to do with that, whether it's good or bad. So definitely one of the players that I'll be paying attention to. Of course, you're going to pay attention to Lauren Betts because you've been paying attention to her for 2 years at this point.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
If your small business has a problem, you could say,
Ugh, just my luck.
but you should say,
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
and we'll help get you back in business. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the Who's in Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a Who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each Who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
Lowe's knows that saving is always top of mind, especially this season. That's why we've picked some great deals for early Black Friday. Get free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit. More tools? Why not? Plus, we've got select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $59.98 because it's never too early to think Christmas. Get Black Friday prices without the crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Okay, then why don't we? I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I want to do a little hot or not of the top 10 ranked teams right now, and just gut check and then you can explain why or why not. Do you believe if that team is a legitimate finals contender here, like a legitimate national championship level team? So we'll start at number 10. Of course, the rankings haven't been updated from more recent games, but NC State. How do you feel about NC State?
I was just watching the game this morning against TCU. Obviously they lost, Isaiah James and Sinai Rivers, so they're kind of rebuilding. And to answer your question, I don't think they're a national title contender. They have a pretty good squad. Zoe Brooks is a new premier guard. They have a 6'6" international player from Sweden who can hit threes, 42% clip. So they're fun to watch, but I don't think they have enough talent to make a deep title run.
Gotcha. Okay, moving up, Maryland.
Maryland's always they've been, they've won a title over the last I think it was 2006, and they're always kind of in that second tier of teams. Like Brenda Fries always compiles a good mix of people, but I don't think, again, they don't have that elite talent that I think that matches up against one of the other teams we'll talk about in a couple minutes. So I think they're not a contender for the title.
Gotcha. University of Southern California, not the other one. University of Southern California, USC, not the other USC.
So I think they're kind of in the same boat as Notre Dame. Obviously last year with Juju Watkins, USC was one of the schools that we talked about as a title contender, but obviously she suffered that horrible injury in the tournament and is out for this year. But I wouldn't feel too sorry. And they lost two of their freshman guards. Heckel went to UConn, and they lost another guard up to the University of Washington, and then they lost Kiki to the W. So, but I wouldn't feel too sorry for them because they welcomed in the number one recruit this year, Jasmine Davidson. They already secured the number one recruit for next year. So potentially they'll have 3 of the last 4 number one recruits playing for Lindsay Gottlieb next year. So for this year, they're not a contender, but watch out, when we have this conversation in 1 year's time, I think they'll be mentioned as one of the favorites. But this year, I think it's just kind of a development year for Jasmine Davidson, and once you pair her up with Juju next year, I think, and then welcoming in Sinai Hall, who's the number one recruit next year, I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with in 1 year, but not right now.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know that USC, who was at least a powerhouse, looked at as a powerhouse over the last couple years, will have the opportunity to return to form, and that there will be, another team to challenge Sarah Strong in UConn, as she will still be there next year. Moving up the list, how about Baylor?
Baylor's interesting. I think they're flying under the radar a little. They had the opening day win against Duke. And I think, right now, and they're adjusting to life post Kim Mulkey. They're, I think, if I am remembering right, they were the last team to win the championship before COVID. And so, it's always a tough transition after you lose a top tier coach like Kim Mulkey. So again, I think for me, they're still in that second tier of they're going to be a pretty solid squad, especially in the Big 12, but I don't see them really having the talent to compete at that top echelon right now.
Got it. Number 6, which I don't believe this team would be ranked number 6 if once these rankings are updated next week. Oklahoma
is pretty interesting. They had a great year, their best season last year in a while with Reagan Beers and Peyton Verhulst. And then they welcome in the number 3 recruit, Aaliyah Chavez. I think they're, the teams that we'll talk about after this are, I think, in a tier of their own, but I think Oklahoma may be top of that second tier. So if Chavez, really acclimates well to the college landscape and Beers continues a great collegiate career, I think they might be a surprise team. But right now I'm placing them at the top of that second tier behind the contenders that we'll be talking about in one moment.
All right, then let's do that top tier. This top 5, and I'm curious if all of these are legitimate contenders. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's start with LSU, who just last week absolutely demolished. I don't even remember who it was. They were winning 61-6 at halftime. It was the biggest or the fewest amount of points that they had let up in a half in school history. They're seemingly a powerhouse team, but I want to hear your thoughts on LSU.
Yeah, I mean, well, their non-conference schedule kind of leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of competition. So I would take that result with a grain of salt because they played against some overmatched opponents. Nonetheless, I think they're one of the contenders for me for a national title. Obviously, you have Flau'jae Johnson, you have Michaela Williams, you have the transfer in from South Carolina, Malaysia Fuwali, and then I think an overlooked key transfer is someone I mentioned earlier, Kate Koval. And Notre Dame, like they're looking at their roster, she's the only player above taller than 6'2", so she's going to be critical to their chances because she's their biggest like inside presence. But I think they have the talent. Obviously, like Flau'jae, Michaela Williams, Fuwali, they're uber athletic and talented. So I think and they're only like 2 years off of. They're 3 years, I guess, off of their championship run. So I think they're a team to watch out for.
It's fun to hear that they're like a fast moving athletic team. Interesting to see how they'll do it without size, but yeah, I think they'll be near the top of my list of teams that I'll be wanting to pay attention to. Number 4 here we have Texas. Tell me about Madison Booker in Texas.
Well, Madison Booker, one of the best players in the country. She's joined again by Rory Harmon, a very a smaller guard, but very feisty, very athletic guard. And then they welcome in Aaliyah Crump, who's a top 5 recruit. They have Brea Cunningham, a transfer from Arizona, who provides inside presence after the graduation of Taylor Jones. So I think again, I think the other teams might get bigger headlines, but I think Texas is quietly reassembling a title contender there in Austin as well. So they'll be fun to watch too. And I think they're a serious title contender in March.
Nice. We already talked about UCLA. You have them penciled in as your day of finals champion. So we'll skip that. Let's talk South Carolina. We haven't gotten to South Carolina yet. How are you feeling about the Gamecocks?
It'll be interesting because they also got a big time transfer from last season, Tanaya Latsing from Florida State, one of the premier scorers in collegiate basketball. And, Dawn Staley's brand of basketball in Columbia the last few years have been relentless offensive rebounding and stifling defense. They haven't had a really go-to explosive scorer. So I'm really curious to see how Latsing fits into to the team because they unfortunately lost one of their key contributors, Chloe Kitts, before the season to a torn ACL. And then Ashlyn Watkins has had some legal issues, so she's stepping away from the team this year. So they'll need Latsing. They got another transfer, a 6'6" senior, Medina Okot, coming in, who will provide that rebounding that we've seen historically with, Aaliyah Boston, battling inside the paint for rebounds. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how Latsing complements and kind of enhances the team because obviously they've won 2 titles in the last 4 years, so they don't really need that much improving, but it's going to be a little bit different now that they have somebody they can turn to in crunch situations where they need a big bucket. So I'm curious to see how that fits into Staley's team.
And then the number 1 at the moment is UConn, which we talked about. So that kind of rounds it out. Thank you, Dad. I love this info.
Yeah, it feels like it's a pretty local, like a 4 or 5 team pod of true title contenders. Is there a school off of that list of 10 that you feel like could be a surprise dark horse, somebody that you're kind of paying attention to?
TCU. I think, last year they had a great season with Haley Van Lith, Sedona Prince. Both of them are no longer, have graduated from the team, but they have Olivia Miles. They have Marta Suarez, a transfer in from Tennessee, Maddie Scher, a transfer in from Kentucky. I think, just kind of digressing a little bit, TCU is like the epitome, unfortunately, of women's college basketball right now. All 5 of their starters did not start their collegiate career at TCU. In the case of Suarez and Maddie Scher, that this is their 3rd school. And so it's just the kind of what college basketball is like, transfers in. SMU is the most extreme example of that. They are welcoming in 10 new players. Like the roster is completely made over from those are 10 transfers in. Ole Miss, over half of their team, 8 transfers in down there. So yeah, it's kind of like we focus on the big transfers like, Latson, but and Fuwali, but just overall, this is, with NIL, this is the name of the game, unfortunately, these days. The purists like me, like the traditionalists, are not so keen on seeing all these transfers, but that's what the collegiate game is like these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's something we're going to have to get used to. I'm getting used to it right now. I think in our Unrivaled podcast, I talked about this, how all the Unrivaled teams switched up from last year, and it's completely throwing me off. And this upcoming W season, surely so many players are going to move around. And I was thinking today, that is how college is too. These players just move around every year. It's different. So I am so not used to that, but that's what it is. That's women's basketball.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's also, it's happening with men's college basketball too.
Sure.
It's basketball, really, honestly. You see the opportunity when it's 5 starting players. It's like, oh, I can really make my mark by joining another team, and then who knows what could happen. But yeah, I'll be paying a little closer attention to TCU. It's a good point about Miles. I honestly had forgotten that was where she ended up. But it's just so funny to me that TCU has that influence to get people to come there every single year and make them, a more relevant club come March. But okay, so that's how we see the landscape as far as the teams are concerned. You named a lot of players. Are there any players that we haven't mentioned yet that you are going to be paying attention to in your mind?
Whenever I need to send roses that are guaranteed to make someone's day, the only place I trust is 1-800-Flowers.com. With 1-800-Flowers, my friends and family always receive stunning, high-quality bouquets that they absolutely love. Right now, when you buy a dozen multicolored roses, 1-800-Flowers will double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. To claim this special double roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/WWO. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/WWO.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If your small business is booming and ready to expand, you might say something like,
It's happening!
Booyah!
Yeah! Crushed it.
but if you need someone who can actually help protect your growing business, just say,
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
and just like that, your State Farm agent can help you get the coverage you need for your new space. For your small business insurance needs, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Big news! Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here. Early. Right now at Wayfair, get up to 70% off everything you need for the season ahead. Save on kitchen and dining, bedroom furniture and mattresses, holiday decor, and way more. Now is the time to score big, from seasonal finds to favorites you'll use all year long. Plus, with Wayfair, enjoy fast and easy shipping with delivery in time for the holidays. Save up to 70% off early Black Friday deals. Shop now at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Michaela Blakes out of Vanderbilt. She had 2 50-point games last season, and so she's leading, the Commodores down in Tennessee. So that's a player that, she's not on like a title contender, but she's making Vanderbilt at least, a team to be reckoned with. And whenever she comes out to the WNBA, she'll be probably like someone to look out for, because obviously she can score at ease. So and she's a fun player to watch. So Michaela Blakes, and then a player that we already talked about, Audi Crooks from Iowa State. Those are two of the players from maybe lesser known programs that you should try to tune into to watch the season.
Nice. Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Now, we want to give you an opportunity as a Stanford alum. Stanford, are they having a moment this year? Is this a year for you to not be super bummed out that your program is underperforming and you're actually feeling like, yeah, they could make some noise? Because I feel like you've been on a roller coaster within the last couple of years.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, they had the number 3 recruiting class in the country. 3 of the top 21 prospects, led by Haley Swain, a point guard out of Georgia, international transfer recruit Laura Sumfai out of Australia, and maybe the next Cameron Brink. It's too early to say. Alex Eschmeyer from Colorado, who's like a 6'4" post with 3-point range, kind of reminiscent of Brink. I'm not, obviously very early in her career, so I'm not, wanting to say she's going to be Cameron Brink, but it's, that's like the infusion of talent we need to compete again, at least get back to the tournament, which we missed for the first time last year since the late 80s. My concern right now, it's still early in the season, but our new coach, obviously our legendary coach, retired 2 years ago, Tara Vanderveer, and so her longtime assistant, Kate Pay, took over. And just the early returns, just in terms of offensive philosophy, just a little frustrated with like kind of a stagnant offense, kind of a lot of passing around the perimeter. I won't go into too much detail, but I think hopefully we'll be able to open up the playbook a little bit more when we face, we're in the ACC now, so we'll be playing a lot of tough teams. So hopefully we'll be able to, showcase our talent that we have now. So I'm more optimistic than I was last year, but we'll see how the season turns out. And then unfortunately, there's the transfer portal at the end of the season. You unfortunately have to keep all the players happy, or as we just talked about, they'll, make a run to the exit if they're not completely happy with their role or how the team goes, unfortunately. So we'll have to keep an eye on how that turns out as well.
I'm hopeful for you. I'm hopeful you get some exciting talent and talent that we can be talking about next year, and talent that can make its way to the W in the future. I think at least the last thing I know that I want to talk about, of course, if you have anything else you want to discuss, we can get to that. But this might be a lot to ask, but if the draft was tomorrow, if the WNBA draft was tomorrow, who are you penciling in for the number 1 overall pick? Because there's been a lot of noise about a lot of players. I'm just curious where you think that number 1 pick will end up. Of course, we don't know what team it would be, but who do you think's that top tier of talent before we get into the rest of them?
Sure. And I know the draft lottery is coming up pretty soon in determining the order, which I'm sure you'll have an episode to discuss probably after it comes out. And right now, Dallas has the best chance of getting that top pick. And I think it's a player that we haven't talked about because she doesn't play collegiate basketball in the United States, is Awa Pham out of Spain. Kind of in the, it'll be potentially 2 years in a row. Like last year is Dominique Malunga. And with RFM, it's another like 6'4" prospect, like great athleticism, inside scorer. I think, imagine her paired up with Paige Beckers in Dallas, that inside outside combo. Obviously Beckers can create space for Fam, and like you can't double team her, or you'll leave Beckers out on the perimeter to shoot her 3-pointers. So I think potentially, like, if Dallas gets the number 1 pick next week, then I think that would be like, she has so much, like, from what I've read, so much athleticism that like it would be like almost like, she would be not if like everyone's picking her to be number 1, but I think the majority of people would see her going to Dallas. Even if Dallas doesn't get the top pick, I mean, Minnesota, because of their trade with Chicago, has the second highest chance. And imagine, Fee with like, our fam, or like Lauren Betts, that front court would be like, obviously the Aces are coming off their championship run, but I think Asia Wilson will have a little bit tougher time if she has to go against, Lauren Betts, for example, when they play Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be such an interesting draft. We've been really lucky with the amount of talent that has come out into these draft classes in the past 2 years, and now we're going to get another one that I know is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And even like looking at, I'm on Tankathon, and it hasn't been updated in 3 months, so grain of salt. They have Lauren Betts at number 1, and they have Awafam at number 6. But I saw some of the footage from EuroLeague, and like, Fam's legit. So it would be interesting if she's the one that ends up going number 1 overall after all of this, another influx of really good U.S. talent. But like, just a lot of good basketball players around.
No, I just love that we have some, different scenarios potentially happening this year. Like the past 2 years, it's pretty much everyone knows, okay, it's going to be Aaliyah Boston, it's going to be Caitlin, it's going to be Paige. So now this year, it could be a bunch of different people, depending on what teams come up. I guess, depending where teams potentially want to go with the new salary caps, hopefully, who knows what teams are going to want to do, and with the 2 brand new teams coming up. So I'm very excited for this draft. We'll definitely do, mock drafts and see where we think players are going to go. But it'll be much more, the top is going to be much more fun, I think, this year than it has been in the past couple of years.
Yeah. It'll be a while from now, but I can't wait. Always love draft stuff. Draft stuff's always so fun. And it'll be cool to see and follow these college programs and see how these players both improve their stock or hurt their stock in certain cases. Obviously, we never hope for that, but you never know. You never know. So, yeah, I think so that's the teams. That's the players. Dat, is there anything else you want to talk about today as we sort of round out this one?
I mean, just like adding in like Olivia Miles and AZ Fudd. I mean, we talked about the 2 big like interior prospects in Awafam and Lauren Betts, but like for like guards, like Olivia Miles might be the next great point guard. I mean, if Dallas decides to take another direction and build a backcourt that like would be like for the next 10 years, Paige Beckers and Olivia Miles, like Miles feeding Beckers off the ball for those pull-up 3-pointers. I mean, that would be something to see over the next decade. Like Floje Johnson, Tanaya Latsing, 2 very athletic, players, and see how their games could translate to the W. They're obviously very talented, athletic players, but once they come up against bigger, stronger, more experienced players in the W, then that'll be obviously a learning curve for them to adapt to the pros. But I'm excited to see, like, those are probably my top prospects to look out for. Like, those are the consensus like lottery picks for the team. So and then I guess like to finish off, like big games coming up, as I said, UCLA, Texas next week, right before Thanksgiving, followed up by the winner of that versus probably South Carolina. And then you have like NC State, Oklahoma in early December. Those are the 2, some of the big games coming up. And then I don't know if you saw, like, there's a very interesting game on Friday, the Duke West Virginia game, where right at the end of the first half, Duke blocked, West Virginia's attempt to hit a three-pointer at the buzzer, and then some trash talking, some punches were thrown. The West Virginia bench was emptied out onto the court, which resulted in the ejection of over half their team. So West Virginia had to play with just 5 players in the second half, and they still won the game. And Duke was the ranked team coming in. So not only did they pull up a mild to moderate upset, it was with just 5 players left for 20 minutes of the game. So that was just wanted to highlight that interesting result recently as well.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much drama. You never know what's going to happen.
That is one of the cooler things about college basketball for sure, because I can't think of a scenario where it's happened in like the NBA outside of like when COVID was happening and there were only 7 players on a roster that could legally play. But the fact that there are times where you have these, literally there's only 5 players to play. You have to play the rest of the game. Sorry. I remember there was a scenario, I think it was men's basketball, where there was like one team was down to 3 players and they just had to go with 3 players. It's wacky stuff that can happen. But when you're just ejecting the entirety of the bench and say, all right, you got a deal, it comes up with these really kind of compelling matchups that end in surprise results. Like I can't believe that 5 players just get it done, even though it's like, like you said, mild to moderate upset. But doing that based on that alone is just wild. And you never hope for this type of thing. You don't want bench clearing brawls that result in ejections from all these players, but like these scenarios are just so crazy that they can happen. And the fact that we've already gotten one so far is maybe that's a good sign for the exciting nature of this year's season. But thank you for bringing that up, because I had heard about it and had forgotten to write it down before we started.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good season, even though I think there's like a kind of clear-cut tier right now, the title contenders. That doesn't mean there's not, other interesting teams to watch and other storylines to follow. So even if the game is not involving a UConn or a South Carolina, I think there's still a lot of fun basketball to watch as well.
Definitely.
And that's what makes it worth it. I'm glad we're glad we had the opportunity to talk to you, Dad. You always are such a wellspring of knowledge. You know so much, and you really fill in all these details that we need for our audience. So I appreciate you coming on again to join Attack the Baseline.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me on. And also, obviously as a WNBA podcast here, like watching like the future stars of the W, one day, especially with the expansion teams coming down, there'll be more opportunities for these players that might not have had the chance because of limited roster space to really show their, mettle in a couple years. So it's good to talk about them right now and see how they develop over the next few years once they, go to the pros and match up against like, the veterans and stuff like that. So.
Okay, so you have reminded me that Philly, how could I forget? Philly is getting a WNBA team in 2030.
How could you forget?
I just hadn't thought about it in, a couple days. I don't know. Okay, 2030 draft. Those players could be freshmen right now.
They could be.
Correct?
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who's going to be on Philadelphia's team in 2030? You tell me, Dad.
You're really putting him on the spot here. Who's a rookie, Dad?
As I said, like, Jasmine Davidson, the #1 recruit that's playing for USC right now, could be starring for Philly right now. So that's a name to look out for. I mean, obviously depending on like who obviously you don't want to get anyone injured or anybody, but like even like the sophomores who might have to miss a year or something, like a Kate Koval out of LSU, she didn't get much opportunity last year with Notre Dame, but as I mentioned earlier, on LSU, she's their inside scorer. So she could be, somebody that you could look out for. So, I mean, those are a couple. Aaliyah Chavez, the #3 recruit that's at Oklahoma, a guard coming up. So, yeah, those are kind of the couple players. And there's, some more recruits coming down the pipeline over the next couple of years, I think there'll be some good talent for Philly to start their franchise around in 2030. So
All right. I'll keep my eye on.
I love it. I love to hear it. Time to lock in, pick some freshman players and be like, all right, you are future Philadelphia blank, whatever that team name is going to be. That is exciting. We can actually sort of wish cast some of these players to us eventually. So fun. Well, anyway, Dad, thank you so much again for joining us today and to talk about the college game. I'm looking forward to catching some of these matchups that you've outlined and just paying closer attention. Honestly, I want to be paying as close attention as I have been, and even over the last couple of years. So we're going to continue to have those games on in the background this fall and in this winter, and always looking forward to March. Gotta love March.
Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to the season as well.
Of course. Well, if you would like to send us an email and let us know about what college program you're rooting for this season or a player that you're looking at, send us an email, attackthebaseline@gmail.com. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform it is that you listen to the show. Connect with us on Bluesky, Instagram, TikTok, if you'd like to say hey, and let your friends and family know about this year's upcoming women college basketball season that is already in full swing. Tell them who you're excited about and what teams you're excited about. And I think that is going to do it for our episode today. Again, Dat, thank you so much. And Kristen, I am staring at the baseline. What are we going to do?
Attack it.
Attack the baseline. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back to talk about that draft lottery next week.
If your small business is booming and ready to expand, you might say something like,
It's happening! Booyah! Yeah! Crushed it.
but if you need someone who can actually help protect your growing business, just say,
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
and just like that, your State Farm agent can help you get the coverage you need for your new space. For your small business insurance needs, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hey everybody, it's Babs. You know, one thing that makes the holiday season so magical is the traditions we share year after year. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about Birch Lane. Their classic furniture and festive decor is carefully crafted to bring joy to every seasonal celebration. Plus, it's delivered fast and free, so you can start spreading the holiday cheer. Shop my hand-picked Birch Lane collection and more classic styles at birchlane.com.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the who's in Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
Extra value meals are back. For just $5, get a savory and sweet sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles, plus hash browns and a coffee. Only at McDonald's.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.